Emma Woodhouse lived in a quiet English village called Hibbury. She was a pretty young woman with bright eyes and a kind smile. She was clever, rich, and loved by everyone around her. Emma lived in a big, comfortable house called Hartfield with her father, Mr. Woodhouse. Her mother had died when she was very young, but her father always took great care of her. He was kind and gentle, but often worried too much about health and safety. Emma was his joy, and he liked to keep her close. Emma had never gone to school far from home. Her teacher, Miss Taylor, had lived with them for many years. She was more like a friend than a teacher. Miss Taylor cared for Emma, taught her how to read and write, and watched her grow up. When the story begins, Miss Taylor has just married a man named Mr. Weston. This made Emma very happy and a little proud because she believed that she was the one who helped them fall in love. She often said to herself, if I did not bring them together, they might never have married. Emma felt pleased with her skill in matching people's hearts, but now that Miss Taylor was married and had moved away, Emma felt a little lonely. The house felt too quiet. Her father did not like to go out often, so Emma missed having someone to talk to all day. Still, she told herself that she would be happy. She said, I will not marry soon. I am rich. I have my father and I have my friends. I can be happy without a husband. She liked to help others find love instead. One of her closest family friends was Mr. Knightley. He was a sensible man who lived nearby at Dwell Abbey. He was about 16 years older than Emma and had known her since she was a child. He often visited Hartfield and gave her advice. He liked Emma very much, but he did not always agree with her ideas. When Emma said she had helped Miss Taylor and Mr. Weston fall in love, Mr. Knightley smiled and said, No, Emma, they would have married anyway. You only think you helped. Emma laughed and replied, Perhaps you are right, but I like to think I helped a little. Mr. Knightley shook his head and said, gently, You will soon learn that trying to make matches is not always wise. A few weeks later, Emma met a new friend named Harriet Smith. Harriet was a sweet, simple girl who went to a nearby school. She did not know much about her real family, but she was polite and cheerful. Emma liked her. At once, she thought Harriet was very pretty and gentle, but a little shy. Emma quickly decided that she would help Harriet find a good husband. She said to herself, Harriet is too good for common men. She must marry someone better. At that time, a young farmer named Robert Martin liked Harriet. He was kind, honest, and hardworking. He visited her often, and Harriet liked him too, but when Emma learned about it, she was not happy. Oh no, Harriet, she said, you must not think of Mr. Martin. He is a farmer. You are meant for something higher. Harriet looked surprised. But he is very good to me, she said softly. Emma smiled kindly but said, Good is not enough. You can do better. Harriet listened to Emma because she admired her and wanted to please her. A few days later, Mr. Martin wrote a letter to Harriet. It was a simple, honest letter asking her to marry him. Harriet was confused. She liked Mr. Martin very much and thought he would make a good husband, but she also respected Emma's opinion, so she took the letter to Emma and asked what she should do. Emma read it and said, It is a good letter, but you must not accept. You should not marry a farmer. Harriet looked sad but said, If you think I should not, I will not. She wrote a kind but firm answer to Mr. Martin, saying, No. When Emma saw the letter, she felt proud of Harriet's courage. Mr. Knightley soon heard about it. He was not pleased. When he visited Hartfield, he said to Emma, You were wrong. Mr. Martin is an excellent young man. Harriet would have been happy with him. Emma shook her head. He may be good, she said, but Harriet can marry someone better. Mr. Knightley looked at her seriously and said, You are playing with other people's lives, Emma. It is not right. But Emma only smiled and replied, I want my friends to be happy. That is all. A few days later, Emma took Harriet to visit Mr. Elton, the village vicar. Mr. Elton was young and polite, and he liked to talk with Emma. She thought he will be perfect for Harriet. Emma began to plan how to bring them together. She invited Mr. Elton to Hartfield often, and always found a way to make him sit near Harriet. When they talked, she smiled secretly, thinking her plan was working well. At Christmas, Mr. Elton joined Emma and her friends for a small party. He brought a poem he had written. Emma was sure it was for Harriet. She looked at Harriet, who was blushing happily, but Mr. Knightley noticed something different. He thought Mr. Elton looked at Emma more than at Harriet. He tried to warn her quietly. Emma, I think you may be mistaken about Mr. Elton's feelings. Emma laughed and said, you are wrong. Again, I know what I am doing. When winter came, the roads became icy, and it was hard to visit friends. One evening, Emma and her father went to a small dinner party at Mrs. Weston's house. Harriet stayed at home because she had a cold. Mr. Elton was also at the dinner. Emma thought it was a good chance to speak about Harriet, but before she could say anything, it started to snow heavily, and everyone decided to leave early. Mr. Elton offered to take Emma home in his carriage. Her father was happy because he did not want her to walk in the snow. Inside the carriage, Emma was thinking about Harriet. She smiled and said kindly, Harriet will be very happy when she knows how much you care for her. Mr. Elton looked surprised. Harriet, he said, Miss Smith, I never cared for her. It is you I admire, Miss Woodhouse. Emma was shocked. Me, she said quickly. You must be joking, but Mr. Elton was serious. I am not joking, he said. I have loved you for a long time. Emma could not believe what she was hearing. She looked away and said, you have made a mistake I never thought of you in that way. I believed you liked Harriet. Mr. Elton laughed softly and said, Harriet, a farmer's daughter, never. Emma felt embarrassed and angry. When she reached home, she was quiet. She went to her room and thought, how foolish I have been. Mr. Knightley was right. I did not understand anything. The next morning, she told her father that Mr. Elton was not the man she thought he was. Mr. Woodhouse said gently, my dear, I am glad you did not want to marry him yourself. Emma sighed. Poor Harriet, she said. She will be very unhappy. She knew now that she had been wrong. She had tried to control someone else's heart, and it had only caused pain. But she still wanted to make things right. She promised herself that she would not play with love again. Yet in her heart, she did not know that love would still surprise her later. Before continue rest of the story, please like, subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot. Now let's continue. After the shocking night in the carriage with Mr. Elton, Emma felt both sad and embarrassed. She could not believe that she had made such a big mistake. She had truly believed that Mr. Elton liked Harriet, but he only wanted to marry someone rich and important. Emma now understood that she had hurt Harriet without meaning to. When Emma told Harriet what had happened, Harriet cried. She felt ashamed and broken. I thought he liked me, she said softly. Emma felt terrible. No, Harriet, it was all my fault, she said kindly. You did nothing wrong. I gave you false hope. I promise I will never try to arrange a match again. Harriet looked at her with tears in her eyes. You are my best friend, Emma. I will always trust you. For a few weeks, life in Hibbury became quiet again. Mr. Elton went away to visit friends in another town. Emma was glad. She did not want to see him. Winter slowly passed, and soon spring came. Flowers began to bloom, and people started to visit each other again. One morning, a letter arrived from Mrs. Weston. She was very excited. She wrote that her husband's son, Frank Churchill, would soon visit Hibbury. Everyone had heard of him before. Frank was handsome, charming, and full of life. Mr. Weston loved him dearly. Emma had never met Frank, but had heard many stories. Mrs. Weston said to Emma, you must meet Frank. He will be perfect company for you. Emma laughed. No, no. I am not looking for anyone. I am happy as I am, she said. but in her heart she felt curious. When Frank Churchill finally arrived, everyone liked him at once. He was friendly and spoke kindly to everyone. He smiled often and made people laugh. Emma found him very pleasant. They talked easily together, and she thought he was very clever. Mr. Knightley, however, was not sure. He said quietly, "He seems too charming. I am not sure if he is honest." Emma disagreed. "You are always too serious, Mr. Knightley," she said playfully. "Frank is fun and full of spirit." Mr. Knightley shook his head and smiled. "Maybe, but be careful, Emma. Appearances can be tricky." Emma and Frank began to spend more time together. They met at small parties, went for walks, and visited mutual friends. Everyone began to whisper that Emma and Frank would soon fall in love. Emma heard the gossip, but only smiled. "I am not in love," she said to herself, "but it is nice to have a friend like him." Still, sometimes she caught herself thinking about him more than she wanted to admit. One day they both went to visit Mrs. Bates and her niece Jane Fairfax. Jane was a quiet, gentle young woman. She was beautiful and talented. She played the piano wonderfully and spoke politely to everyone. Emma admired her skills, but felt a little jealous. Jane had spent time in London and seemed wiser than the girls of Hibberry. Frank, however, showed great interest in Jane. He praised her piano playing and often joked with her. Emma noticed this and began to wonder, does he like her, she thought. Then she laughed to herself. No, they are only friends. Frank is friendly with everyone. Soon after, there was a grand ball at the Crown Inn. Everyone in Hibberry was invited. Emma was very excited. She loved to dance. Frank asked her to be his partner, and she said yes happily. That night she wore a beautiful white dress and looked lovely. Frank danced with her all evening, and everyone said how perfect they looked together. Harriet also came to the ball, but something sad happened to her. When she entered the room, she felt shy. No one asked her to dance at first. Mr. Elton was there with his new wife, and when he saw Harriet, he turned away coldly. His wife whispered and laughed. Harriet looked down and felt small. Emma noticed it and felt angry. "How rude he is," she said to Frank. Frank looked at Harriet kindly. "Shall I ask her to dance?" he said. Emma smiled with relief. "Yes, please do." Frank walked straight to Harriet and said, "May I have this dance?" Everyone saw his kindness. Harriet's face lit up with joy. She danced happily and Emma's heart warmed. She thought, Frank is truly good. He made her smile again. After the ball, Emma began to think that perhaps she might love Frank after all. He was kind, handsome, and fun. She liked how he treated her father and friends, but deep inside she was not sure. She sometimes thought of Mr. Knightley's calm, serious eyes and his honest words, but she quickly pushed the thought away. Mr. Knightley is like family, she told herself. Frank is new and exciting. A few weeks later, Harriet told Emma something surprising. "Emma," she said shyly, "I think I am in love again." Emma looked at her with wide eyes. "Really? With whom this time?" Harriet smiled and said softly, "I cannot tell you yet, but he is much above me." Emma thought for a moment and then said, "It must be Frank Churchill." Harriet blushed but did not answer. Emma smiled secretly. Yes, it must be him, she thought, and this time I will not stop her. But soon the truth began to change everything. One morning news came to Hibberry that shocked everyone. Frank Churchill was engaged. He had been secretly engaged to Jane Fairfax for many months. No one had known, not even his father. Emma was speechless. She sat down and whispered, "So he was never interested in me at all." She thought about how foolish she had been again. When Harriet heard the news, she also turned pale. Emma saw her pain and said gently, "I am sorry, Harriet. I know this must hurt you." Harriet looked surprised and said, "Me? Oh no, Emma. I never loved Mr. Churchill. You misunderstood me. I liked someone else." Emma looked at her carefully. "Someone else? Who?" Harriet looked down and said, "Mr. Knightley." Emma felt as if the world stopped for a moment. "Mr. Knightley," she said slowly. "Yes," Harriet said. "He has always been so kind to me. I thought maybe he could care for me." Emma could not speak. Her heart began to beat fast. Until that moment, she had never truly understood her own feelings. She suddenly realized that she cared deeply for Mr. Knightley herself. That night, Emma could not sleep. She walked around her room, thinking of every time Mr. Knightley had spoken kindly to her, had warned her, had looked at her with concern. She remembered how much she respected him, and now she knew the truth. "I love him," she whispered. "I always have, but I did not know it." Emma felt torn between guilt and fear. She had guided Harriet wrongly again, and now her mistake had reached her own heart. What if Mr. Knightley loves Harriet? She thought. "I cannot bear it." The next day, Emma saw Mr. Knightley walking in the garden. Her heart raced. He looked serious. She thought he had come to speak about Harriet. She tried to smile, though she felt weak inside. "You have heard the news about Frank Churchill?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I am glad you are not hurt by it." She looked down and said softly, "I was foolish again." He stepped closer. "Emma," he said, "you are never foolish in my eyes. I only wish you knew how much I care for you." Emma looked up. Surprised, he continued quietly, "I love you, Emma, I always have." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You love me," she whispered. "Yes," he said gently, "and I hoped you might love me too." Emma smiled through her tears. "I do. I love you very much." Mr. Knightley took her hand, and she felt peace in her heart. The long confusion, the pride, the mistakes, all of it suddenly seemed small. She had finally learned the truth about herself and about love. But one thing still worried her. Harriet did not know about this. Emma felt guilty and afraid of hurting her again. She knew she must talk to her soon and be honest. Emma felt both happy and sad after Mr. Knightley's visit. She was happy because she loved him, and he loved her too. But she was also worried about Harriet. Harriet was her friend, and she did not want to hurt her again. That night, Emma sat by the window and thought for a long time. The moon was bright and the garden was quiet. She said softly, "I have made many mistakes, but I must be honest now." The next morning, Emma asked Harriet to visit Hartfield. Harriet came with a kind smile, not knowing what Emma wanted to say. They sat together in the sitting room. Emma looked at her gently and said, "Harriet, I need to tell you something important." Harriet looked a little nervous. "Yes, Emma," she asked. Emma took a deep breath. "I have spoken with Mr. Knightley," she said slowly. "He told me that he loves me." Harriet's face went pale. She looked down at her hands and said nothing. Emma continued softly, "I did not plan this. I did not know how I felt until recently. I understand that this must be hard for you." Harriet's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled a little. "It is all right, Emma," she said quietly. "I see now that he was never meant for me. He was kind, but not in love with me. You and he belonged together." Emma reached for her hand. "You are my dear friend, Harriet," she said. "I never wanted to hurt you. You deserve real love, and I know you will find it one day." Harriet smiled. "I hope so, but please do not worry. I am not angry." Emma felt a wave of relief. For the first time in many months, her heart felt light. A few days later, Harriet decided to visit some friends in another village for a short time. Emma thought it was a good idea. "You need rest," she said. "You will feel better away from Hibberry." Harriet agreed and left with a gentle hug. When she was gone, Emma spent more time with her father and Mr. Knightley. Mr. Woodhouse was very happy to have Mr. Knightley at Hartfield. He trusted him and liked his company, but when Emma told her father that she wanted to marry Mr. Knightley, he became worried. "Oh, my dear," he said, "if you marry, you will leave me. I cannot live without you." Emma smiled softly and said, "Papa, I will not leave you. Mr. Knightley and I have already spoken about it. He will come to live here at Hartfield with us." Mr. Woodhouse looked surprised. "Will he really?" he asked. Yes, Emma said. He wants to make sure we are both happy. Mr. Woodhouse finally smiled. Then I am at peace. He is a good man. Life in Hibbary soon returned to its calm rhythm. The summer days were long and bright. People spoke kindly of Emma and Mr. Knightley. Everyone said it was a perfect match. Mrs. Weston was especially happy. I always knew this would happen, she said with a warm laugh. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived for Emma. It was from Harriet. Emma opened it quickly and read the words with joy. Harriet wrote that she was now engaged to Robert Martin, the kind farmer she had refused before. He had met her again during her visit and had asked her to marry him once more. This time she had said yes. Emma smiled with tears in her eyes. Oh, Harriet, she said softly, you will be happy at last. When Mr. Knightley came that evening, she showed him the letter. He smiled and said, I am glad. I always thought Mr. Martin was the right man for her. Emma laughed gently. Yes, you were right again. A few weeks later, Harriet came back to Hibbary. She looked healthy and cheerful. When Emma saw her, she hugged her tightly. You look happy, Emma said. Harriet blushed and said, I am, Emma. Mr. Martin is good and honest. I think we will have a peaceful life together. Emma smiled. That is all I ever wanted for you. They sat in the garden and talked about everything that had happened. There were no hard feelings between them. Harriet said, you taught me a lot, Emma. I was foolish sometimes, but I learned that love cannot be made by another person. It comes naturally. Emma nodded. Yes, I learned the same thing. They both laughed softly, feeling close again. As the days passed, preparations began for both weddings. Harriet and Mr. Martin planned to marry quietly at the church in Hibbary. Emma and Mr. Knightley chose to marry soon after. Mr. Woodhouse still worried, but he saw how kind and gentle Mr. Knightley was to everyone, especially to Emma. On the morning of Emma's wedding, the sun shone brightly over the village. The church bells rang softly. Emma wore a simple white dress and looked graceful. Mr. Knightley waited for her with calm eyes and a warm smile. When she reached him, she felt peace in her heart. She remembered all her past mistakes, all her wrong guesses about love, and smiled at how much she had grown. During the ceremony, she looked at her friends and family, Mr. Woodhouse, Mrs. Weston, and even Harriet, who smiled happily from her seat. Emma's heart was full. She realized that happiness was not in making plans for others, but in understanding and forgiving herself. After the wedding, there was a small party at Hartfield. The house was full of laughter and joy. Emma's father sat near the window, watching his daughter and her husband. I am happy now, he said softly. Mr. Knightley smiled at him and said, and I will take care of her always. As the evening came, Emma and Mr. Knightley walked together in the garden. The air was cool and the stars began to appear. Emma looked up and said, I was wrong so many times, but somehow everything ended well. Mr. Knightley took her hand gently and said, because your heart was always good, Emma. You only needed to see it clearly. Emma smiled and looked at him with love. I see it now, she said. I see what truly matters. And there under the quiet sky of Hibbary, they began their life together with understanding, honesty, and love.